Second life lesson, here we go. The purpose of this happy hour is to talk about how to become comfortable being vulnerable and just being who you are rather than who people want you to be, or being afraid of the judgment that comes with putting yourself out there and being imperfect. It's that time again. It's happy hour, an unscripted event where we sit in the car outside of the gym, get caffeinated, listen to good music, and self-analyze. Try to break down the things that are working and the things that are not working. What's on my mind today? Let me take a swig of this pre-workout and then I'll be happy to tell you. Okay, so as you guys may have seen, I have started this YouTube channel, a platform that in my mind is kind of devoted to serving three different value propositions. One is serving as a news and current events commentary channel. You guys have seen my videos. I enjoy doing that. I like kind of being a news anchor, presenting my interpretation of current events. It's obviously with a slant and with a bias. I would never present myself as being somebody who's just stating the facts, except about COVID data. That's a very sensitive topic because I do believe that the raw, non-biased information, such as, for real, how many deaths, how many cases, what percent vaccinated versus unvaccinated, those are just straight up calculations that we should be truthful about. And when I see the mainstream news being blatantly untruthful, they're blatantly lying about all of those numbers, I get triggered, obviously. That's my thing. I'm a data analyst. I've devoted a lot of my professional life to being able to recognize when I see bad data. So we won't go down that road. That's not the point of happy hour. The whole point of happy hour is actually to not let work or not let stressful things eat into my energy. This is my time to let the stress go and think about how to shuffle all of my thoughts in a way to where I get the most done. Yesterday's happy hour was about productivity and about when you do have leisure time, if you find yourself with 2 extra hours in the day, or just on average, because you don't have children, somebody like me, for example, I have more free time to spend than other people. And so you have to be very careful with that free time. You shouldn't just take it for granted and absorb all of the binge watching Netflix that you can. You should try to use that time, at least half of it or more, in some kind of productive fashion. So that's what I talked about yesterday. The subject on my mind for this happy hour is, I told you, I'm standing up the YouTube platform, and obviously it has that news content. I didn't go into the other 2 pillars that I'd like to serve on this YouTube channel. One of them is fitness and nutrition. Like, as a fitness model, I have a pretty accredited background on knowing what it takes to change an individual's physique. Like, if that's your goal, if you want to get lean, if you want to get muscular, then I can tell you how to do that in my sleep, on both the nutrition side and the training side. Do you need to know about supplements, what gym routine? I have all of that catalog information in my head. And I've always shared it with people in my personal life, coworkers, friends, family, anybody. When they ask me, I'm happy to help them. And people have often asked me, like, why don't you just do personal training? I don't have any ambition. I don't have the time, is the simple answer. Like, to be a good personal trainer, you do need to be engaged and very thoughtful of your clients. And with I already have 40 hours a week of a professional career working for a corporate kind of setup. So I have a full-time job already, and I'm already in the gym training myself, 10 to 15 hours a week, and then trying to record videos and edit videos and all that. There isn't an extra 10 to 20 hours a week to also tend to clients. So that's why I don't do that. But I can pass along a lot of that information, not on a per client basis, but I can scale and get that same information out to many simultaneous people on a YouTube platform. So that would be a second value proposition of the purpose of my YouTube channel. There's the 1/3 news and current events, second third is fitness and nutrition, and then the third would be on career growth, investment, and financial and perspectives. Stock market, real estate, pick your poison, but how to succeed in those areas. So I feel like my experience professionally and personally in all three of those buckets, so to speak, can bring a lot of value into a lot of different people's lives. So that's kind of the general gist of the entire YouTube platform that I'm building. And so you'll see these episode formats come out where the episodes like this and the happy hour kind of circumstance are much more about just personal insights gained while doing all of those things over the last 35 years. It's a pretty long time. And then the actual episodes of like newscasts are obviously a completely different vibe and they're about current events. They're not about what worked for me 5 years ago to finally get more discipline into my life. That's a whole different arena. So that's all stuff about the YouTube channel. That's actually still not the point of today's happy hour. Today's happy hour is in terms of that category around really important life lessons learned that helped me become successful in any given thing. Yesterday I talked about having to flip that ratio on your leisure time. Like, that was a very important life lesson for me to learn. Second life lesson, here we go. The purpose of this happy hour is to talk about how to become comfortable being vulnerable and just being who you are rather than who people want you to be, or being afraid of the judgment that comes with putting yourself out there and being imperfect. And it's not even a matter of perfection. It's just a matter of being different. And everyone is different than somebody. Like, no matter how vanilla you are, you're still going to be different than the person next to you because you had a different set of parents, you were born in a different place, you had different jobs. Everything about you is different. So, when you are willing to put yourself in a public forum, such as on a YouTube channel or create any kind of social media where it's meant for more than just sharing with your friends and family, you're actually trying to share and offer something about yourself to the general public, there is an immediate sense of fear that you will be judged for your opinion on whatever arena. I'm sure when I give my suggestions for diet and exercise stuff, people will be like, well, you can also do it this other way. Why didn't you mention that? Like, because I'm telling you what worked for me. I'm not prescribing anything to anybody. And so how this began, my very first life lesson on, like, dude, you got to get over what people think or what they're going to think if you do this thing. The thing people do is they talk themselves out of very rewarding opportunities because they're afraid of what other people will think of them taking that risk. And so when it comes to creative endeavors, artistic endeavors, artists know this feeling very well. Whether you're a songwriter, you're a painter, you're any other form of musician, you're an actor, when you're in the early stages of perfecting your craft, you're hyper conscious of what whoever is watching you or listening to you thinks. Like, you're praying that you're doing everything right and not stumbling on a single word. And if you're singing, every single note is on pitch. And if you're painting, no one notices the little parts where you had to paint over because you didn't get it right the first time. Or if you're editing a video, no one noticed that one transition that didn't quite look as clean as the other transitions. You can pick your own craft apart, your own work apart, to the point where you talk yourself out of even sharing it with people. Like, you know what, this isn't good enough, not enough people will like it, I'm not going to do it. And there it is, you've already closed the door to possibly succeeding because you didn't even put yourself out there to even get a test or any kind of feedback on what you're trying to accomplish. So when I was 20 through ages 25, the first half of my 20s, I was dead set on becoming a professional musician. I loved the instrumental film scores. You know, whenever you watch a film or a documentary or television shows for that matter, there's always a classical film score, you know, underneath the dialogue that's going on, violins and pianos and choirs and all that stuff. And I always found that music very moving, especially because it doesn't have lyrics. It has to somehow get across very specific emotions. Like when you're watching a tear-jerker scene, it's important that the music matches the sadness and the sorrow that you're seeing. You can't have carnival music, right? So I found that very perplexing. Like, how do people do that? How do people know what sounds to make and not use any words but still trigger the same emotions that the words and the dialogue contain? And so I wanted to be a film score composer and producer. So that's what I did. I Googled how to learn how to write music. And so I started downloading software, and I spent the next 5 years of my life writing music for at least 40 hours a week. I did it full time with no job for like 3 years, and then I continued to do it simultaneously with a job for 2 more. I was very, very passionate about it. If you asked me during that time, like, where do you see yourself in 10 years, or what do you want to do with your life? I would have told you without any hesitation, I want to be a professional film score composer. That's what I want to do for Hollywood movies and etc. I was living in Huntsville, Alabama at the time, so it's not like there's a booming film industry in Alabama for me to gain work. So I had to be creative with finding opportunities to even apply my original material to. And so I would post on like New York and California's Craigslist, just saying, hey, I'm a composer looking for work, that whole thing. So the thing is, before I got to the confidence level of reaching out directly to directors and people who were creating the content that I wanted to pair my work with, I had to trust that my music was good enough that they would even listen to it and enjoy it. And that didn't happen until I had probably already been writing music for a couple of years. I wrote thousands of pieces of music before I got to one where I was like, I think this is music good enough that it exceeds a small niche of people. You know, like, it's not going to be 300 or 400 people that like this song in the entire world. And it perhaps because they don't know any better, because they haven't heard better music. Like, it took so many repetitions and iterations of working infinite hours. Like, I stopped counting the hours. It didn't matter. I just sat at my desk and wrote music. And if I wasn't writing music, I was studying the music in films to figure out how are people doing this. And so it got to a point where I decided to broaden my compositional skills and start making music in other genres, because frankly, it is just very, very hard to find that kind of work. And the real difficulty is people won't listen to that kind of music when it's not paired with video of some kind. And so there's a very small audience, people like me basically, who sit around listening to film scores with just headphones, right? Like, there's not many people doing that. Definitely not enough to go and like sell millions of records, or even hundreds of thousands of records, or even thousands. It's just really hard. So in order to find more work, I had to branch out into not just composition, but started doing more production, which is more along the lines of instrumentals you would hear that go with pop music, hip hop music, rock, and all that. So learning how to create beats and whatnot. And so, long story short, I spent a whole extra year doing production like that on top of the compositional skills I learned doing the classical music. And I was stuck in a place where I was sharing my instrumentals with other musicians, people who write lyrics and perform lyrics over the instrumentals. And that was all good and well, but what happened was I would write the song coming from that from the mind of a composer trying to portray emotion, but without any words. I would write the instrumental piece of music trying to portray a certain emotion. And it was a bit more specific than that. It was like I'm trying to really invoke a memory that I had, like a very specific story with this just instrumental. And then when someone else would write lyrics and perform a song on top of it, it might sound completely fine to them or to other people listening to the finished product, but I know the story that I originally wrote that instrumental for, and when I hear other people's words on top of it, it doesn't match. So I was essentially painted into the corner of starting to having to write my own song lyrics. Like if there's a story you want to tell, you can't have other people tell it. So I was like, I don't know how to write songs. Like, I hated writing poetry in school, so I then had to figure that out. So I spent another full year learning how to write songs, which are, at the most basic level, they're poetry set to a certain cadence and, a beat. So dissected the science of that, and then I had the whole package minus vocal performance, because you can be a songwriter all day long and never actually get behind your microphone. You just pay somebody else to be the vocalist. Like almost all the music you hear on the radio, the person singing the song didn't write the song. And so I was thinking, is that my future? Like, am I supposed to be a songwriter? Because I am really enjoying writing these songs, and I think I've become pretty good at it. And I have the full range to develop the instrumentals, so maybe I'm just looking for a vocalist at this point. Well, couldn't find a vocalist. Once again, I'm sitting there in Alabama, and the niche of music that I chose to work in was a kind of aggressive electronic dance music genre. So this is where I felt home, so I struggled to find anybody to collaborate with to perform the vocals for me. So painted into a corner again, I was like, at this point you're telling me I have to sing the lyrics too, so I have to write the instrumental and record that and mix and master it. Then I got to write the lyrics, and then I got to perform the lyrics. Like, it's one-man shop end to end. I got to do everything. You know what? Fine. Like, I'll do it. So at that point, I'm in my 4th and 5th year of being a musician, and I'm doing everything myself, and finally get to the point where I record a full-on song, everything, the music, the vocals, the songwriting, 100% credits to me. And I was pretty confident in the subject material and the production value of it, and so I submitted it to a record label that I knew published music for several of the artists that I really admired in that category of music. The record label's name is Metropolis Records. And so I knew that they were doing a compilation for cancer research. It said that it's just an open casting call. You don't have to be a published musician, just submit your stuff and we'll let you know. And so I took the moonshot and submitted my song as a completely unheard of artist. I mean, my whatever social media I was using back then probably had like 100 or less plays. And so I sent it in, and I don't know, within a few weeks, I got an email back saying, hey, we like your song and we want to use it on our compilation album. Here is a right to represent letter that you have to sign over, the rights to the song and all that stuff. And that was my first record deal. It was really cool. I was like, wow, like, okay, it was an unexpected bucket list item that I had gained the ability to now check off. Like, it was never my goal to be signed by a record label, but when it happened, it was kind of the official validation of all of that work was legitimate. Like, it wasn't just me doing it for my own sake to get my emotions out, which is why it started, really. It had now become a fully formed thing out in the world that other people validated as, okay, we approve that this is legit and good. Like, that gave me great confidence in terms of how interesting. I put myself out there, I wrote the song lyrics, it's about my life, and I, would obviously have some apprehension about people hearing some of the struggles that I went through and would potentially judge me about them. And when it was well received, it kind of extinguished a lot of that self-doubt. I was like, okay, I put myself out there and it actually went really well, and now I feel really accomplished because I have that validation stamp of approval from other people that, yes, your work is actually up to par. That changed things for me. It was like, I kind of saw myself on this perpetual struggle bus of not ever being able to get fully recognized in any category of life. Like, I didn't think I'd ever have that great of a career, didn't think I would ever amount to much in any kind of regard. So once I had that stamp of approval, it kind of opened my eyes to like, what else am I restraining myself from doing because I'm scared of what people might think, or because I'm scared I might fail? And so then I got into the fitness stuff. Within about a year or so of that is when I started working out. I started working out in 2014, I think. And I saw Z's online and saw his transformation and was like, wow, it's so inspiring, you know, that a guy who's just sitting around playing video games with no direction in life can become someone who is highly disciplined and able to commit to long-term goals. It's clearly not a genetic thing. It's not a win the lottery with great parents thing. It is purely the decision that you make to say, who I am, I want to be better. And I know to be better, a lot of my underlying behaviors have to change. The things I do every single day when I get up in the morning, am I taking care of myself just by taking multivitamins, drinking enough water, following some kind of diet? Am I getting any exercise at all? Am I actually pushing my education further, or am I just sitting on what I accrued back in high school and whatnot? That stuff was, the door was kind of lifted, and I could see now the path forward. I was like, okay, if I actually just work really hard at something for 4 or 5 years, I will actually become quite proficient at it. So proficient that other people will see it and acknowledge it as really good. And so sure enough, that's exactly what happened with the fitness thing. Like, it didn't happen in 3 months. Just because I fully committed to the gym and decided to start eating better, I remember struggling extremely hard for the entire first year, for sure, of like really having to talk myself into going to each gym session. Like, you know, Josh, you committed to this. It's just, at that time, it was only 3 days a week. And I was like, it's only 3 days a week. You're only in there for an hour, man. You can do it. Like, just think of Z's and what he accomplished. Just think of how proud of yourself you'll be a year from now. I mean, it was like a psychological struggle. Every single gym workout, I had to hype myself up, slam that pre-workout, you know, turn on the best kind of music I could find to get amped up to do it. Like, it was a full-on event to get myself to the gym 3 times a week. That's how lethargic and not an exercise kind of guy I was. And so a few months went by of actually having fully committed and just doing it, having that pep talk every day that I had to have it. After the first few months, and I had dropped 15 to 20 pounds of fat, I had a little bitty bicep vein sticking out of my arm now. I could start to see my abs a little bit, and that was enough. Like, that was enough clear, tangible, positive feedback to say, well, you can't stop now. Like, it's very clear that the formula works. All you have to do is just keep following it. Sure, you might want the results to come faster, but if you've already demonstrated the proof that the formula is working, then you just keep following the formula. And that's exactly what I did. Like, oh, so all I have to do is just count my calories and aim for a deficit, and that's how body fat starts falling off? Okay, well, that's what I'm gonna do. And don't get me wrong, dieting is awful in terms of getting by on less calories than you want, but I can make a whole separate video about hacks and tricks to get by doing that. There's plenty of ways to feel satiated and full and happy with what you ate and not feel like you're living on, you know, poverty amounts of food. And so quickly then, after, you know, a full year of working out, my body looked dramatically different. And then even more so in the second year, even more so in the third year. You know, once I got past like 5 and 6, then the changes aren't really that meaningful. But it was that same thing of, if I just devote to doing the habitual work and not ever quitting, never like, sometimes you're going to miss a day, sometimes you might have to take a whole week off. It is what it is, but I'd never want to let myself go longer than a week. And that's what kept the habit consistent. And then I got to the point where I was like, once I was several years into it and my body started looking considerably different than the average person around me, other people started asking me, like, so what's the deal, dude? Do you like do fitness modeling stuff, or like do you do bodybuilding? Like, what's the deal? Like, why do you take the exercise stuff so seriously? And so that's kind of what started pushing me into this concept of, well, fuck, like, if other people are looking at me and assuming I'm some kind of model, I guess that's whether or not I see myself that way, I have clearly become that to other people. So at that point, we're just going to ride with it. Like, okay, we'll start setting up some photo shoots and we'll go from there. And that became another way of putting myself and my story about what worked for me and what didn't with the fitness stuff out there. Whether or not people like it, whether or not people have whether they have opinions that they think they could have done it better or they are doing it better, doesn't matter. If someone is disappointed and thinks I could have done even better over that time, which I surely could. I slacked off plenty of times because I'm a human being. But over the long term, my averages are very consistent. That's the key. But putting yourself out there is that critical component of actually achieving something meaningful over time. So now I find myself in the same situation again. Like I had to put myself out there as a musician, then I had to put myself out there as the fitness model stuff. Now I have to put myself out there to build a YouTube channel that is kind of inclusive of all of my life experience. I mentioned those at the very beginning of this happy hour. So this has become a long video. I didn't mean for it to be, but hopefully this gives you a better idea of how my happy hours work. This is truly how they look. Like I sit here and think about everything that's happened, and I try to connect the dots on what were the good things that allowed that to happen. And I didn't get to go into the negative things of obstacles I created for myself that made things take longer, lessons learned. That's obviously part of this entire setting of happy hour too, because there's plenty of stuff I did wrong, plenty of habits I was just stubborn and didn't want to give up, even though I knew they were counterproductive. Plenty of those things too. So we'll cover those in another video at some point. Now that I've jabbered on for 27 minutes, I actually have to drink my pre-workout, finish my happy hour, get in here and have a good workout. Talk to you guys later.